Hey everyone, Heather Williams here with another Fireside Chat. As always, we're excited to be joined by Michael Funk from the California Department of Education Expanded Learning Division. And today we have some really special guests from Fresno Unified School District. I'm really excited to have the three of them joining us, and we'll introduce them a bit more in a moment. But we're actually going to start off with some policy updates. There's been a lot of things going on lately, a lot of different things moving in the last couple months. And so I'm just going to pull up my screen in just a moment here, and we're going to jump right into talking about some of these updates so that we can get to our special guests. So with that, I wanted today pretty much talk about the trailer bill, Senate Bill 114. And so trailer bills go through the budget process every year. This helps add clarity for programs. And so the budget process happens, and a lot of times through the budget process, it's really focused on what are the dollars, what's the actual budget, but then trailer bills come behind the budget process to add clarity in education code or other law about program requirements. And so this year, through the budget process, Senate Bill 114 is the education omnibus trailer bill. So it's a really lengthy bill. We'll put the link to it in the chat so you can open it up and read through the specific language. But it is really long. It covers all sorts of areas of education, but it does provide a few key updates for expanded learning. And we've talked a little bit about this in a previous Fireside Chat. We went into depth about the licensing. We're going to walk through some of the other changes today and just add a little bit more clarity about what was in there. So a couple things first off that are pretty simple. The ELO-P school year. So originally in education code, there was a lot of reference to school year for ELO-P, so requirements taking place over a school year, which caused some confusion. So everywhere in education code where it referenced school year, that's been replaced with fiscal year. We talked about this back in May, and so that's the same as what was proposed in May. That's what was adopted. Similarly, another simple update, ELO-P expenditures. A couple different things here. Language was added to clarify that funds could be encumbered. So expended or encumbered, and extended the deadline for expending or encumbering funds received in 21, 22, and 22, 23. So funds from both of those years can now be expensed or encumbered up to June 30th, 2024. And we also talked about that back in May, and that's the same as what was proposed. The next change is a little bit longer, so I'm going to walk through this one in more detail, and we actually have the education code that I'm going to pull up in just a moment, but this talks a lot about health and safety, in particular when an LEA is working with a third party, if you're working with a community-based organization to run your programming. So this in particular is related to health and safety issues and some requirements there. We talked about this back in May as well, but I'm going to pull up the language. And one thing that's really important to note is where this was changed in education code. This doesn't just impact the ELO-P funding, it impacts any program that uses some combination of ELO-P, ACES, and or 21st century funding. So here's the language. I'm not going to read it all because it is pretty long. And for those of you that are education code experts, in particular ACES education code, you might recognize this section 8484.3 or 8483.4, excuse me. And there was some previous language in here. Nothing was changed to that. This talks about staff ratio 20:1. So nothing was changed there. What was added was this new language starting with section B. And so again, this really is referring to when an LEA is contracting with a third party to operate a program. And this is when there is a health or safety issue that happens during the program. And so the third party is now required to notify the LEA by the next working day if there was an incident, and to submit a written report about what happened within 7 days. And this actually goes through and outlines, this isn't a full list, but it's any event, including any of the following. There could be others as well: injuries that require medical treatment, epidemic outbreaks, fire, explosions. There's a whole long list there. Again, I'm not going to read it all, but these are the instances. And there could be others where there needs to be a report submitted. It also adds one other piece. And so again, LEA contracting with a third party to run a program. The LEA now needs to request that the third party request from parents or guardians health information about students, like if the student has allergies or asthma, before the student is enrolled in the program. And as always, parents or guardians have the option to provide that information or not. So it does not require parents to provide that information, but for example, your CBO partner is running one of your programs, they are now required to ask parents to offer that information if they would like to. And again, this applies to all of our funding sources, ACES 21st Century and ELO-P. And then just a few other changes. Again, ELO-P licensing requirements. We talked a lot about that in the last Fireside chat. And so we walked through the details of that and what that means. And Michael's going to offer a little bit more clarification on that in just a moment. And then there were two additional pieces, one around ELO-P offsite programs. And so this was proposed during the May revise and clarified a little bit further. And so CDE will need to request information from LEAs if, again, they are contracting with third parties to provide ELO-P services offsite. And so they will need to provide contact info for the third party, number of students and grades of students served offsite, licensing information if applicable, and then the final bill actually also added a piece providing a single point of contact for each LEA regarding ELO-P. And then the last piece that the Senate bill did was add this piece around ELO-P data reporting. This was new requirements that weren't included in the May revise, so we haven't talked much about this before. But CDE will need to establish a process by February 1st, 2024, that to submit a report that includes the following information. So if CDE needs to submit a report, they will be asking for LEAs for this information, and that includes the number of providers who are serving TK and K students on a non-LEA site, and the number of students served during the school year as well as summer. The number of providers who are serving TKK students on a non-LEA site in 23-24 who are also licensed. The type of programs that are licensed, how many students are served, and Michael can provide some more clarity on this. And again, we talked about this. ELO-P is not, those programs are not required to be licensed, but if they do have a license currently, it needs to be maintained. So if they have a license, this is reporting on this. And then lastly, some information about third parties, providers, and contractors, and number of students and served by grade and so forth. So again, CDE will be working on outlining a process to collect this information from LEAs. And I think that's it for the trailer bill. One last quick update for those of you that have been following the McCarty bill that proposed some changes to expanded learning funding and some data collection. That bill has currently, the unofficial term is parked. So the Assembly Member McCarty asked for that bill to be parked for further conversation because there is parts of that are requesting data collection and just needing more time to work on that before the ledge season ends, which the legislative session ends this week. And so at this point, there are some budget trailer bills and other bills going through the legislative session, and they will hopefully be finalized this week. And then the governor has until October 14th to sign those. So there could be other minor technical changes to the budget process, but the bulk of them have gone through so far. And Michael, do you want, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you want any of the slides up?
No, you can take down the slides. Thanks, Heather, for that update. I know it's a lot to sit through, but it is important. And in the last fireside chat, we mentioned, hey, we're not sure why they're asking if you have a license, you keep it for the next year. Why the arbitrary date? I mean, none of you probably care that CDE has to put out a report to the legislature by February 14th. But all through the budget process, we were involved in negotiations and working things out. And a lot of these additions, like the reporting for the third parties to the LEAs, are additions that the catalyst for all this was now with ELO-P, TK and K are required to be served. And a lot of our expanded learning agencies don't have experience with that age group. So it's a negotiation with community care licensing of how do we bring in some of these practices that happen with licensed childcare and bring them into the universe of expanded learning. And of course, in the May revise, it stated that if a third party operates a TK or K program in a location off campus, that they would have to be licensed. And that disappeared from the final version of the trailer bill. Well, now we know how all this comes together. So that decision has not been finalized. The Community Care Licensing, Department of Social Services, this is a placeholder. And so the requirement of CDE to collect this data of who LEAs contract with third-party organizations to do TK or K off-site is data that they want to use to actually finalize those negotiations. And they didn't want the state to lose the capacity for childcare. They didn't want childcare organizations to get rid of their license because then they could serve a bunch of kids with ELO-P and not have a license requirement. So that's the requirement, like hold off for a year, keep your license. We're going to look at data and we're going to revisit all this after the first of the year regarding licensing for programs operated by a third party off campus. So with that, thanks. Hope that was helpful. There's a lot more we could have covered, and I have been up to my ears in this stuff, even most of the day to day. That's late breaking and stuff still being worked out. So we're in it every day, but we're in it for you and working for you so you can do what's our kids deserve. So Fresno Unified, you've been patient. Thanks for joining us. Superintendent Nelson, Jeremy Ward, Assistant Superintendent, and Connie Cha, Director, Expanded Learning. Connie had invited me to come to the kickoff for Expanded Learning in Fresno, which I gladly accepted. And I didn't realize at the time, but I would have the chance to meet both Jeremy and Bob, and it was Connie for the first time as well. But what a great event. And I got a chance to hear, I'm just going to say Bob, right? Superintendent Nelson is a little bit
Yeah, please. Yeah, we don't stand on principle there. My friends call me Bob.
I got a chance to meet Bob, and Bob spoke before I spoke, did the keynote, and I was like 3 minutes in, I said, I got to get this guy on a fireside chat. Primarily because Bob is widely considered the most handsome superintendent in the state of California.
Never a bad hair day, Michael Funk. That is the
Right.
answer. Yes, correct.
So Bob, your passion is palpable, your commitments, the things you believe in. We had a chance not only to listen to you, but also have conversations with you and hear what you care about. And so we haven't had a lot of superintendents on the fireside chats. And I'd love for you just to share with our audience, why expanded learning is so important to you. And then we'll have a conversation with you and your whole team.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it. And we're just honored to be here with you. I don't know what you know about Fresno. I mean, I think it's reasonable to assume when people are like, Fresno, why are you talking to Fresno? Nothing in the Bay Area, not Southern California. Fresno, when you say the name of the community, it carries a little bit of a stigma to it. And maybe that's because we're the most impoverished region in the state of California. We don't say that by way of deficit, but we say that by way of reality. Fresno Unified, if you don't know already, is the third largest district in the state behind LA and San Diego. And I'm super blessed to serve here. I taught here back in the day. I have 32 years in the district, and I've sat here as the superintendent I'm in my 7th year, which actually makes me the longest of the major urbans in the state of California, which is awesome and really hard too. But the reality of it is our kids don't have exposure or opportunity to have some of the things that kids traditionally have. So the ELO-P program allows us to just expand the worldview of our kids in every possible way, both every day after school, where we're providing them a safe and responsible and comfortable place to live their life. And then additionally in the summer, a lot of hay has been made with our summer program, but we spend the entire month of July just working with really meaningful, awesome nonprofits in our local community to give our kids a wide array of experiences that they wouldn't have any other way. So we keep kids busy all July by using our ELO-P dollars and it's super good for my superintendent friends who may be listening to this call. I don't know if that's a big group, or anybody, frankly, you having the ability to use taxpayer revenue to support the best nonprofits in your community and to bankroll the people that share your vision of what's possible for kids, man, there's really nothing better than that. And your kids are the direct beneficiary because they get to do a wide array of things. Like we have kids in scuba gear on the bottom of the pool putting together space. I don't even know. I can't even begin to tell you the wide array of opportunities our kids get to do is amazing. And moreover, our kids get access to stuff that probably you remember from your childhood that is still with you now. Take them out to river camp, sing all the silly songs, act ridiculous, be with the camp counselor, have a good time, wear the t-shirt, get dirty. Those are some seminal growth moments in the lives of children. And ELO-P helps us facilitate that every year. I shouldn't overstate it, right? All I do in this role is talk. I get paid to talk, which is, occupational hazard. The two people that are sitting with me on this call are the ones who make that happen. For our kids, it's their vision, it's their implementation, it's their follow through. But we know what we're about, which is how do we make sure every kid is as self-actualized as he or she can be. We serve a lot of roles in our community for our kids, just like you do. We feed them, we're the police, we're the counselor, we're everything. But we are also kind of the life builder, and ELO-P gives us an opportunity to see and have a window into the life of our kids outside of the classroom, which is a super powerful tool. And so I don't know, Jeremy or Connie, if you want, or Mike, I don't know where this is going to go from here. Having me, facilitate in any way your fireside chat is a deadly choice.
Jeremy or Connie, chime in.
Yeah. So sorry, Jeremy.
No, go for it.
I want to share that many of the things that we were, designing and trying to put in place prior to ELO-P did involve looking at who are the people to partner with us that would have the strongest passion and investment in the children that walk through our gates every day. And we knew that it had to be our community partners, because these are the children that are in these communities and our best partners to be our allies, to bring meaningful experiences that these children may never have even thought possible, would be our community partners. So with ELO-P, it really, like Bob said, it really provided us with a lot more opportunities to say, hey, let's dream big, keep our kids front and center, and let's make sure that we utilize this wonderful opportunity through ELO-P to lift the experiences for our kids, but ultimately, in the same breath, lift our community. And I think that was one of our early vision with our design of the expansion of our expanded learning programs in Fresno Unified. The work, I will be honest, it was definitely challenging at times. We were in uncharted waters, but just because it hasn't been tried doesn't mean that we shy away from it, or at least that's my personal belief. And I always say, think about the little Connie Chaws in our district. What would they want? What can we give them as far as an experience that will put a smile on their face, and to make sure that they looked forward. Oh, Bob.
Case in point, the little Connie Chaws of the world. Forgive me for bringing a visual.
That is little
that's
Connie
baby
Chaws.
Connie Chaw right there.
And so think about all the little Connie Chaws and what would put a smile on little Connie Chaw's face, and make her look forward to coming to school, make her look forward to coming to the summer programs. You know, because we know, yes, we need to make sure that we provide a safe space and food and nutrition and meet all of those needs, but how do we elevate the experience beyond that? And ELO-P has really afforded myself and all of the leaders that I work with in our district, including Jeremy and Bob, and the list just goes on and on, for us to really go, okay, Fresno community, are you ready to join us? Are you ready to join us in this venture? And we don't have a guidebook, but we want people who are going to be innovative and fearless and to go along this ride with us. And we have been so proud of where we've come thus far, and even more excited to continue deepening our community partnerships and widening it moving forward. And so I'm going to pause there, and I know Jeremy.
Good job, Connie.
Lots to add. Little Connie Chaws.
Very, very well said. Both Bob and Connie, I think they both kind of captured the big ideas about, we knew even before, so just a little background, even before the funding came, we were starting to kind of rethink and reimagine what this would look like. And we recognized that within our community, Bob mentioned that we're the most impoverished area in the state of California, but it doesn't mean the whole area is impoverished. And there's some stark contrast between what an inner city kid in Fresno has versus a kid, if you drive only 15 minutes north of town, what they have access to. And we knew this was a time that kind of level that playing field a little bit and provide the same opportunity that all children get. And it's been a really, really worthwhile and exciting experience so far.
I think structuring it, part of it, making that equity matter, has created some difficult issues for us. Like when you let people sign up for coursework, or when you let people sign up for the camps, and people of privilege know how to work the system generally. And so it's forced us to really grapple with what equity looks like for children, and a really practical way to kind of figure out, like, how do you help kids thrive in situations where they may not necessarily have the inherent tools to fend for themselves, or families? Like, how do you get families involved and keep them abreast of what the opportunities are that are available to them? So that's good. I mean, in that sense, right? So ELO-P helps us grow and helps us like put equity in practice in meaningful ways, right? To like make our money, it forces us to put our money where our mouth is.
I've heard some things I want to lift up and then have either one of the three of you amplify, but Connie, you mentioned a phrase of our children are excited to come back to school. Well, most people, you know, one of the things the state's talking a lot about is chronic absenteeism and the sharp rise in chronic absenteeism. And we're trying to be very, very precise and emphatic, stating that expanded learning, high quality expanded learning, is one of the most effective strategies to battle chronic absenteeism, because it changes the relationship that students have with their school. I'd love for any one of the three of you to just kind of riff off what I just said.
So absolutely, we were not immune to the challenges that came with the pandemic and trying to get back to what our new normal is. And one of the many things while we were looking at how do we really capitalize and maximize the opportunities through expanded learning programs, is what can we make that will breathe new life into the experiences of our children in our district, to get them to be like, I'm going to school because we needed to think outside of what our old norm was, and to say, okay, how do we breathe new life, breathe new experiences, and get that little Connie Cha to want to come to school. Maybe she comes to school because she says, I can't wait to be able to go and do the Lego that's part of my after school program, or I can't wait to go to school because I get to build the little piñatas through our My Little Piñatas program. And so those were the things that were swirling in all of our heads while we were trying to think of how do we breathe new life, like I said, in new experiences for our kids across our district, and to also understand that the interests of our students may vary depending on whatever concentration of ethnicity, makeup, and whatnot in the different regions or the different areas of our district. And so that was what we were doing as far as brainstorming while we were trying to come out of the pandemic, to come out of the days of 100% distance learning. And we knew that our families were wanting their children to be back in school, to be engaged in school. And this was something where there wasn't a playbook. And we knew that through the expanded learning programs and opportunities, that was our chance to hook our students in. That was our chance to say, hey, look what we have ready for you, little Connie, for you to come back to school. And so with that, we started off small, and we knew that we needed to grow. We knew that we couldn't all take this lift on our own shoulders, just within the walls of our district. And that's where we were like, hey, who will be more invested in our babies than just like us? And that was where it was like, yes, our community, because our community was ready. They were ready to help us, to join arms with our district. And so that is where we started those steps towards, we have to do different, because in order to have different experiences and different results for our students, we have to think and put new things in place, and see if that was going to help bring back the student connectivity to the school, and for students to be, again, excited about returning to school in this new normal.
I think in addition to the what, which Connie talked about, we're going to provide you quality content. The flexibility of ELO-P dollars gives me the luxury of being able to hire classified staff members who are just exemplary. Like, find me the best people in our community that touch the hearts of kids every day, and I have a place to put them on my campus where that kid can interact with that young man or young woman every day, right? Or that like community leader, or that, right? I am not hemmed in by their credentialing necessarily in the same way. So if I find somebody that is safe, loving, caring, appropriate, and I know that they're going to make an impact on the lives of the kids that I serve, I now have a place to ensconce them in my system to make sure that that kid gets a regular diet of being exposed to them in their excellence every day. That's super powerful.
That's a quote worth repeating, Heather. Bob, I want to, well, first, right over in the corner, I have a stack of the summer catalogs in 3 languages that Connie sent me home with. For those of you that are as old as me, it's reminded me of the Montgomery Ward's Christmas catalog. I mean, it is so full of things that kids love and would do and would sit there. It is a magazine full of the most amazing, fun, free things. And there's some, yeah, there it is. And so I would encourage, if you are an LEA or even a community partner who has struggled with what's possible with summer, because let's face it, there's a lot of LEAs who have not had expanded learning dollars before. And the thought of 9 hours for 30 non-school days when there's no bell schedule, there's no curriculum, there's no assessments, what do we do with that? And so now I want to circle back to that, because Bob, you mentioned the consideration for equity and the intentional things you had to do to make sure that the kids who really deserve and needed these opportunities the most had access to them. Is there an example of something that one of you can share that people might learn from?
Jeremy, you want to give our transportation example and the lessons learned between the years, or anything? I mean, obviously, we're talking about, it's so crazy when you talk about 30 days and 9 hours and you have to fill it. We have way more interest than we have time available to fill. Anyway, sorry, JW, go ahead.
No, I think I could probably just kind of touch upon this just a little bit, but with a couple of examples. But as we've been rolling this out, just like I would imagine any LEAs are going to experience some challenges. Part of this is figuring out how this is going to be equitably accessible for all of our kids, which is the transportation piece, really even called out in the ELO-P. So that's taken us some really thoughtful work with our partners in transportation. Our transportation department has amongst the biggest lift that they do, right? As any department, anybody in our system does every day. But there's unique challenges recognizing that our drivers don't necessarily work in summer, right? So we have to entice them to be able to be a part of that, working carefully to make sure that we're making those opportunities available. But I'll highlight one point, and that is we knew that this had to be a story of accessibility and opportunity for our children. But we also knew that we wanted to empower our leaders and our teachers to really have a role and a part in this program as well. So I'll highlight the fact that historically Fresno Unified pre-pandemic had about somewhere between, depending on the year, 14 or 15 of our elementary schools that would operate some form of a summer school, a summer program. And that's out of the overall 68 elementary schools that we have. So the thinking was that, we don't have a lot of money. We're going to condense the schools down into just a few around the whole system. We'll try to bus kids out as much as we can to get them there. And you can imagine what the impact and result from that was in our families, which was that, number one, kids are not super excited about going to a school that they don't know that school. They don't know the leaders. They don't know the teachers. They don't know the other kids. That's a huge disincentivization to get kids to participate if they're struggling with chronic absenteeism, if they're struggling with reading literacy gaps, issues, mathematics, you name it. That's a tough sell in a family. So we knew that with the ELO-P, there was an opportunity for us to do something remarkable. And that remarkable opportunity came in the form of us keeping literally all of our elementary schools open throughout the entire month of June. So as we've really been highlighting our summer camp program. Our summer camp program takes place in the month of July. We do that in July because we don't want to have cross conflicts with our summer academy program, which happens in the month of June. So we try to be really strategic about how we did this. We keep all of our elementary schools operating in the month of June. Our site leaders, our teachers that want to be involved with that work do so. We went from, just to highlight a couple of points, we went from having a little over 4,000 students participate in summer, we call it really traditional summer school work just a few years ago, to this summer, more than 12,000 elementary school students participated in the summer academy, right? And that was at their home school with the people that they know, with the leaders that they know. And we do all that in June so that we can focus on academic needs, so that we can have also the enriching experiences in July. But it really is more than that in June as well. So our leaders, Connie's been talking about how we can entice kids to come out to be a part of these programs. Of course, if I'm a student in a family that's like, hey, guess what? You need help with math. Come back to school for a few more weeks. How the student interprets that is, wow, that sounds just great. I'd love to do more math, So it's not what we message. So our leaders at our school sites intentionally embed enrichment in their programs at the school sites as well during the month of June. So for example, there's a local vendor named Reptile Ron. There's actually a lot of versions of Reptile Ron. He has several staff members, but it's It's called Reptile Con. And they bring out, you know, cool little creatures and stuff, and the kids get super excited about it. You'd be shocked the number of kids that want to be a part of the program because they know they get to participate in stuff just like that. So I'll highlight one other point that has been a big learning point for us as well in this process that our other LEAs might be interested in. And that is, we knew that as we were doing this work, if we were not leaning alongside our school site leaders and teachers and partners, that if this was a centralized body of work always, if this was only centralized, that we were going to struggle. Like there had to be collective partnership and even I would say ownership on the part of the school site leaders towards how they're viewing their children and how they're going to support their children outside of traditional school day and the traditional school year as well, which is where the summer academies kind of came into play in the month of June. And, you know, I don't want to make it sound like it's all perfect. It's not. We have a lot to learn of still. We're still making adjustments. Connie and I were just in a meeting earlier today with some of our partners working through some other matters in preparation for next summer's program. But it has been a great learning experience. We've more than quadrupled the amount of participants we've had involved in summer over what Fresno Unified has had in the past. And it really just highlights the notion that if you provide and offer meaningful opportunities for kids, our families will respond, right? Even families that did not have those opportunities when they were children growing up, when our parents were growing up, they want those things for their kids and they will get their kids involved. So.
Can I just throw some love at the folks that are on this call with me and some other people that I think of Tressa, and just there's a number of people that do this work with us. After the first year, we figured out from an equity perspective that our goal is to be as inclusive as we can every day, all the time, right? Our goal is to provide inclusive opportunities, both on the June and the July set of events for kids, as well as after school every day, right? Like one of the things we didn't even talk about is we used to have long waiting lists for after school care. We have none of that now. Every kid that needs those services and supports after school is provided those supports and services every day. But the goal is to make it as inclusive as we can. So this last summer, it's no great secret. Everybody in Fresno Unified knows that the most chronically underserved youth that we have in our system are African-American youth, students with special needs, English learners, particularly newcomers, and foster and homeless youth. And I'm pleased to report that of all the people that we served this summer, every single one of those pre-identified groups grew markedly in terms of the number of kids with intentional outreach to try and get up. I mean, it's just about, can you bring people to opportunity and how do you do it? And I think, Michael, we're gonna have to do that same thing in the chronic absenteeism vein, because we're no stranger to that either. Like life is just different post-pandemically. You know, if you're sick at home, your parent doesn't force you to go to school anymore, whereas they're, you know, pre-pandemic, you'd have taken the Tylenol, gone off to school. But it's just different now. So we're going to have to find different ways to reach into the hearts and minds of people. The one thing I know is we're creating schools that are perceived as really safe places for kids to hang out all year round. There's people there that they know they can be counted on and they know that they can trust. They know they can get a meal there 24 by, it seems like all year round. Like we serve meals even during the winter break. Like, you know, you could debate whether that's our core work, but if it adds to the value of our community and it adds meaning, and we outfed any other group in the pandemic. We fed literally millions upon millions of meals. And we didn't turn adults away. Like if you came and you had need, we just fed you. And we banked on the idea that right thinking people would prevail and there'd be a way we could find to fund that. And I'll be danged if we didn't find a way to make all of that a reality. But the bottom line is people trust their schools. They may hate public education, but boy, they love that kid's teacher and they love that principal, right? I mean, it's just a weird thing. Everybody hates the superintendent, loves the teacher, which is fine. Like I couldn't care less. But the reality of it is like, our goal is to build a set of places where our families and our community know that they can reasonably expect that there'll be people, loving people there that are there to provide services and that love their children. You can't put a price on that. If folks can't find ways to spend the ELO-P dollars, I'm not sure what to do with you, to be very honest. Like if that hurts you, yeah, by all means, if you're willing to give it back, we will take it. I'm on there are many other little Connie Chaws in the world who need your money in Fresno. So if you're giving it back, we're taking it today. You heard it right here on this podcast. So
awesome.
I can't think of a better way to close.
Yeah, you all are just fantastic. And I just want to express my appreciation for your leadership and everything you are doing in your community. I think you walked through, I was like, that quality standard check, that quality standard check. Like if we talk about offering really high quality, meaningful programs for our students and opportunities, like you've got it covered. So much appreciation to you for not only your leadership in your region, but the leadership that you're now providing across the state to how to use this money really well. And so thank you for joining us. And Michael, I'll turn it over to you to close us out.
Well, Bob, Jeremy, Connie, little Connie, you're now included.
I didn't get, see, she was an excellence in education winner, Michael, but I didn't get the giant head. I only got the little sticker. So this is all I can bring to the party. It's a bummer. Yeah.
The audience is used to hearing me close admonishing and encouraging people to lead with love. And what's so obvious is that your commitment, your passion, what you have put into action is driven by love, and you've said it. And so I can't think of a better way to lift up what love in action looks like in education. So thank you for all three of you for what you do, your leadership. You're an inspiration to me. I get to deal with a lot of stuff. Let's just use that word. And it's such a pleasure to be part of this conversation and to have people tell me back what we've been dreaming about, what ELO-P could be. So thank you, and invite me back to Fresno. I'll come.
Come on, you go. Hey, we grew 80% of your stone fruit. If you like peaches and nectarines, you gotta come by.
Thanks, everyone. Until next time.